With this video, we're going to just kind of continue on the currency converter program, take a look a little bit more at the form and see where we can go with this. Now I have a macro, of course, that will go out to a web page, bring in all of the currency conversion factors, and we're going to use a user form to actually access this data on the sheet. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to pull up my latest currency converter form. You'll notice that I've added a few things to it. What the form currently is doing is it is indeed reading the currency list from the sheet. You'll notice that it starts with the Argentine peso, Australian dollar, and so on, and goes right on down, just as it pulled it from the sheet. The next thing you'll notice, of course, is we're going to have a box here that will say what we're going to convert from, what we're going to convert to. You put in the amount, and then you hit the convert button, and it calculates the result. So right off the bat, I just wanted to show you, I've put a couple of buttons on here to select from the sheet. So if I click on the euro here, and I hit the pick button, it will pull euro into the convert from box. Now, of course, I'm going to need to keep track of that in some fashion so that I can get these conversion factors on the sheet so that when we do the convert to. Now, if we convert just to US dollars, it's quite simple because that's what the conversion factors are already in, dollars. But if somebody picks something that's not a US dollar to convert to, then you're going to have to convert it to the dollar, and then you're going to have to convert it from the dollar to the second currency. So it gets a little bit more interesting. I don't have anything else implemented so far on this particular form, but let's just take a little look at some code here. So to start with, you certainly need to create all your elements, of course, and give them good names. The code for loading the currencies. Now I've actually written a piece of code to do that so that you can actually see it run, but I'm not going to give that to you. I would just put it in a subroutine right in your user form. I'm in the user form code window here, and I would go ahead and just create a sub called load currency, so you can call it much like I called it up here. So in the user form initialize, you don't want to just add a whole bunch of lines of code here to load that. You'd like to create a subroutine that says load currencies, and then you can call your subroutines. This whole idea of breaking your program up into small manageable chunks is a critical piece of writing any program. So one of the basic rules of thumb that I've heard many people say is that you should never have a subroutine that's got more than maybe 10 lines of code in it. If you start getting more than 10 lines of code, you need to take some of that code out and put it into a subroutine, and continue to keep your subroutines all somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 lines of code, constantly breaking them down into smaller pieces. The smaller pieces are much easier to manage. They're much easier to debug and try to figure out where your problems are as your code gets larger and larger. So in the load currency, of course, you're going to declare whatever variables you would need. You'd find the last row in the currency column, in the currency name column, find the last row, and you can use the find last row for that. And if you use find last row, of course, just put it in a code module, because find last row is just a piece of code, doesn't really belong in the form. It's something that could be useful by lots of different parts of your program. So you just go ahead and put that right into your code module. So I have a code module over here called my code, and then I have my recorded code, which of course is my get conversion routine that actually goes out to the web and pulls those conversions in. Now, probably what you'd want to do is you'd probably want to actually call this every time you activate the form. So in the form code, you might want to call get conversion. So I could try that out here. Let's just let's go ahead and say get conversion. Now I'm not sure what this is going to do because I haven't tested it out at all. Let's see if that's what I called it. I want to double check that. So it's called get conversion, you betcha. And so I'm not sure what it's going to do, but I'm pretty sure what it'll do is it'll put the conversion stuff right on the sheet on top of the old stuff and just override it. Now we could test that out, of course, simply by clicking on the sheet, and we could put something in this in these cells here, like we could just put different numbers in here so that we can test and see if we get some new values. when we actually load the form. So if these values all get changed to, the strange numbers that you see here, then what it's doing essentially is overwriting. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit the show converter, and I've got that piece of code that gets the conversion factors right in my show conversion, into my initialize. So I'm going to click that and let's see what happens. So notice what happened is it went out to the web, got all my conversions, updated all the data right here in place. But okay, let's take a look at what happened. Notice what it did. It did an insert and pushed everything over. So essentially it inserted these three columns rather than inserting it on top of. So that's something we'll have to think about. So the rest of my code's working fine here, but let's go see if we can do something about that conversion. Get conversion. So we'll go back to Visual Basic, go to look at the recorded code. And so it says destination, so it says destination range equals A1. So it looks like it's trying to put it right into A1. So that's good. Let's scroll down on this and see if we can find something else. Field names, row numbers, fill adjacent formulas, preserve formatting, refresh on file open, background, refresh style, insert, delete cells. Now that's kind of interesting. I might have to look that one up. Save password, save data, adjust column width, refresh period, web selection, refresh background query, insert, Excel insert, delete cells. Now I'm going to have to research this. I didn't like the fact that it actually inserted. I mean, I did like the fact that I got all these data and it's all in column A. That's exactly where I want it. But I really want to get rid of these three columns. So I could write a little piece of code to get rid of those three columns. And so one quick way to do that is just to say record macro, and let's call it delete columns. And say OK. And then I'm just going to select column D, E, and F. And I'm going to right click. And I'm going to say delete, and it deleted those three columns. And then I'm going to just say stop recording. So now I ought to be able to go in and take a look at that. And so here we've got module 1. It added a new module for that because that's what it just does. So let's take a look. So it says columns D through F select, and then selection.delete and shift XL left. So what I could do is I could select those two rows that I know delete those two extra columns. So I just copy that, go into recorded code, and down here at the bottom of get conversion, after it gets that, I can just say select those extra columns and then delete them. Well, let's see what happens. Let's go back to our code here and hit show converter and see what happens. So it goes out there and does its thing, and you'll notice that it's got these three rows highlighted, which I really don't want. So now all I need to do is select the top row cell. So I'll just go ahead and close that. I really just want it to be right there, I guess. So I'll go back to my Visual Basic, go back into recorded code and selection, and then I can just say something like, range, and I'm just going to do this the old-fashioned way, range A1 dot select. And let's see what happens now. So we go back out to our code. I'm kind of just going to stepping through here, trying stuff out. And let's click show converter. Goes out, grabs everything. You notice everything's peachy here. Now you notice a little flash when it did that. So we really want to stop auto-updating the screen. And so, we got to figure out how to do that. I'm going to just go maybe look at a Google search real quick and say Excel VBA screen update. And there's an option there that says screen update off. So let's just see what that says. Turning off screen updating. So the way you do that, you say application screen updating. So I'll go back to Visual Basic and I'll go into my recorded code, and we basically want to say right here, we want to say application.screen updating is set equal to false, and you really got to remember to turn this back on. If you don't turn it back on, of course, things are not going to work the way you want them to. So remember to turn that back on. Application.screen updating, screen updating is set equal to true. So we turn that back on. Now let's try that one more time. So let's hit show converter. Does its thing. Notice we didn't see any flashing or anything, so that's sweet. So everything seems to be working. Try out some of these techniques and keep working on this particular problem.